Hi guys. Our second video for today then is going to be about rounding decimals. So in the last video we figured out how to find a decimal place value, which is a skill that we'll use then with rounding decimals. So in your journals, go ahead and label a line for rounding decimals, and then whatever page number your rounding decimals notes will be. Then in class, you were given this little sheet for practicing rounding decimals. At the top of the page, I put rounding decimals and page 19. So just a little bit of a review for how we rounded whole numbers. And it's going to be very much the same for rounding decimals. Remember that you always look to the number after the place value that you're rounding to tell you what to do with the place value. And if that number is 4 or below, then you're going to leave the number the same. So you don't change the number at all. We call that rounding down. If it's 5 or above, we're going to round up or change the number to 1 above what it already is. So we'll round up. And we call that rounding up because the number is bigger. Okay, so here are a couple examples for us. Our first example says that we have this number, 6 and 578 thousandths, and we want to round it to the hundredths place. So we locate the hundredths place first of all, and we've underlined it for you here. So here's the hundredths place right here. And in order to know whether to leave that a 7 or to round it up to an 8, we're going to look at the number behind it. And the number behind it happens to be an 8. So we look over here at our chart, and our chart says that if it's 5 or above, we round up. It means we bump the 7 up to an 8. And so we've done that for you over here. We've bumped that 7 up to an 8. And then notice that we've dropped the numbers behind it. If it were whole numbers, we'd fill all of those numbers behind the place value that we're rounding to with zeros. But for decimals, we can just drop those off. We don't need those anymore for rounding. Here's another example then. We have the number 3 and 92 hundredths. We want to round it to the tenths place. The 9 is in the tenths place. As always, we look at the number behind to tell us what to do. That's a 2. If we check our chart, it says here that 4 or below, we leave this alone. And so we leave that a 9 and we drop off the 2. And so our final answer would be 3.9. Let's practice with a couple more here, and then we'll have you try some on your own. So down here we have 2 and 746 thousandths, and we want to round to the tenths place. First we locate the tenths place. The 7 is in the tenths place. Then we look at the number behind or following the tenths place. It's a 4. We check our little chart. 4 or below tells us to leave it alone. And so we leave that 7 alone and we drop the rest of those numbers off. And so our answer is 2 and 7 tenths. So 2 and 746 thousandths rounded to the tenths place is 2 and 7 tenths. Let's look at this one. This one says to round to the ones place. Oh dear, that's not a decimal at all. You know where the ones place is, it's right there. But we still have to look at the number behind the ones place to tell us what to do, and that's the number, the 7, that's in the tenths place. And that 7 is 5 or above, so it says to round up. So this rounds to 7, and we just drop those numbers off. All right, you go ahead and try the next two. Pause the video and try those two, and then come back and see how you did on those. All right, so for this one, 866 thousandths, it tells us to round to the tenths place. The 8 is in the tenths place. The 6 tells us to round that up to a 9, and so our answer is 0 and 9 tenths. The next one is 10 and 8,071 ten thousandths. We're going to round to the hundredths place, so tenths, hundredths. The 0 is in the hundredths place. We look to the 7 to tell us whether we should leave this a 0 or bump it up to a 1. The 7 tells us to bump up to a 1, and so we drop everything off after the 0, which we're now bumping up to a 1. And this number rounded to the hundredths place becomes 10 and 81 hundredths. So now you should have a real good feel for rounding decimals. You've got one more video to watch before I see you again, so I'm going to stop this one and I'll get the other one ready for you.